Hello and welcome to the Holding Space podcast. Today we are holding space for motherless daughters who had a complicated relationship with their mom and then she passed. Today's guest is Cierra, and I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself, Cierra.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know it was going to be that fast.
Welcome.
Well, thank you, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Cierra Johnna, and I'm a wife and mom of two. And I won. Can I say how I met Miss Tori or what? Like
Go ahead,
what I
girl.
okay. I was saying it's
Yeah.
not about me. It's about you, girl. It's about you. But I have been in the digital marketing space for a little bit over a year and some time. And I met Miss Tori through one of my mentorships programs. And ever since, me and sis, we kind of didn't click. We were part of a club that's unfortunate, but I'm so grateful for Miss Tori because baby, every time I be talking to her, I be getting a little emotional because she know how to hit them triggers. But yeah, I grew up in the system, foster care, everything like that. And I've always knew my mother. I've always been in and out of my mom's life. Um, but it was nothing ever really like a real connection there. And for years and years and years, I felt like it's always personally have to help me back. And again, being a motherless daughter just is unfortunately one of those things that it sucks being a part of. And it gives you this strength that you really didn't know that you had. And I, with going through what I went through as a motherless daughter, um you know, I didn't want to be a mom, but I became a mom. And crazy thing is, like, becoming a mom, and the one thing that I thought I didn't want to be ended up being my brand. So that's a little bit about me. And thank you, Tori, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you being here. It's definitely an honor, because I look up to you. I do. 'Cause
Don't say that.
you are doing your thing, and I love it.
Yes,
And
yes.
everything about your brand, I love it. You are just a genuine person, and
Mhm.
I believe that's why we click so well because I don't do fake.
Right.
You are as genuine as they come, for real.
Too real.
I know you mentioned that you grew up in the foster care system. If you would just start out by giving insight on how you grew up from, I don't know if you were born into the foster care system
Oh,
or,
okay. I got you.
just a little bit on that.
Yeah, yeah. So, again, so I was originally born with both of my biological parents, mother and father. You know how Black people be, baby, they be married for years and ain't really together. But my mom, she won, even before I was born, unfortunately, was abusing drugs and alcohol. Her upbringing was really, really rough. And I think that's so important for just us as moms, as women in general, to really talk about that because obviously generational curses and understanding that. But yeah, so my mom kind of had a rough upbringing. My father, I don't come from like, a money background or anything, baby. We come from rough, okay? Like rough. Like my parents both kind of grew up in Gary, Indiana, which is, I don't know if you know about Gary, Indiana, baby. It's rough out there. But yeah, my mom really just didn't have, honestly, a chance. Her parents weren't really as a supportive, and just, those things were kind of passed off to me. So by the time I was one, because my mom was abusing drugs and alcohol, my father was as well, but he's kind of had a little bit more under control.
Mhm.
From like literally, I was in foster care from 1 to about 7. And I do have other siblings as well. And it just kind of felt like, and as a child, you don't get it, but it's just like, why can't I be with my mom? Why can't I, be with my parent? And it's just like it makes you immediately started developing like these like certain type of traits like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy because damn, my own mama don't want to be with me. Sorry, Tori, I be cussing, I be trying to
Are you
trying to
fine?
clean it up.
Listen,
But
listen,
yeah, so from the time I can remember, yeah, I was in the system. There were certain foster homes that I remember being in. It was rough. That's a whole nother story and another story. And then by the time I was 7, because when you grow up in the foster care system, my siblings, we have different fathers. So sometimes my siblings' fathers, they would get them, and then it's like me, I'm left in the guardian home looking like, where everybody at? You know what I'm saying? So again, growing up, I really never had a real nucleus or whatever like that growing up. So again, by the time I was 7, I end up getting back with my biological siblings where we share obviously the same mom, but again, not the same father, and I get adopted. So from there, it felt good at that moment. I remember being excited, like, man, I finally got a home. Like, I have a permanent address. I'm not going to be, changing a different school or whatever like that. But I still didn't know at the time just like what I was going through. Cause again, I was a kid, obviously. But still, I never ever really remember having that maternal connection. I've always, strived for it. I always wanted it. And, there were moments where, you experience like, your childhood best friend or something like that. And I'm so grateful for, her mom and how she was, because I'm gonna be completely honest, she was white.
Mhm.
And it's already hard being a young lady, but especially being a young Black woman, and then you don't have someone telling you or, how you should carry yourself, things that you should do, and just really developing, as this young lady, with me being a mom now, everything that I was missing as a childhood is something that is so important to me that I instill in my own children and especially my daughter. So as I'm growing up, I'm in this foster care, I'm finally adopted. Again, the relationship, there was no maternal type of feel, there was no kind of bond. It was, baby, that check is clearing every month.
Mhm.
And that's it. As long as that check clear, me and you could be cool. But other than that, there was no support, no nothing. Like, I lacked that literally my whole childhood, growing up. But one thing about me, baby, I don't know if it's a Leo thing. I have always just been a rebel, and a rebel in a good way, more so like I'm gonna be somebody. Because as a mom, one thing that I've learned, you should be speaking life into your children. I didn't get that growing up, never heard any kind of words of affirmation, never, like, I struggled with, low self-esteem as a child. Even it's funny, going into my marriage, I'm so grateful for my husband because he has always, poured love into me and, told me that, you are worthy, you should have these things, you deserve these things. And, with that being said, kind of navigating through, middle school, high school era, baby, I was a late bloomer. I ain't get into boys or nothing like that because, again, I didn't have anybody telling me these things about how a woman should carry herself, and just, baby, I was just out here living life. Okay. And again, being a rebel and the person that I was, I growing up and always seeing the negative things that I seen, growing up in the projects, baby, I could tell you some stories. Okay. Growing up in the hood, I just always strive to want better. And I'm so grateful. And, as a kid, we used to have those like motivational people come to your school, and just you see a woman, especially a Black woman. And I think that's really what kind of made me just really fall in love with just a woman's aura, period. Like, I just love it. I love pouring into women. And I really think that that started from my childhood, because that was like my outlet. When I seen really any woman, but especially a Black woman, like, be on her shit, have her stuff together, I was like, bro, baby, I don't know how I'm gonna get up out of here, but when I do, yeah, I'm gonna be that girl. I'm gonna be someone that, people look as like, that's gonna be motivating, that's gonna inspire them, that's gonna, pour life into them. And, I graduated early. And one thing that I even regret, and I think it was a huge part of my childhood that I hate so much, I didn't go to prom. I didn't go to my own graduation. I didn't do any of those things because at such a young age and growing up how I grew up, I was like, I got to get up out of here. So I focused and doubled down so I could graduate early. And I knew that, I was just like, it's sad to say, but I was just such in a rush to get out into the world. Being under somebody else's household and being under their rules, you can only do so much. But again, not having that love and support, it really kind of made me a savage. It made me kind of heartless because it was like, when no love being poured into me. And, luckily, kind of, once I got out into the real world and experienced things, it was just such a eye-opening moment, because I was like, wow, women carry themselves this way, or women talk this way, or seeing, mother and daughter relationships and things like that. And I was like, it made me almost obviously resent my mom, but at the time I didn't understand, because, that was the best decision that she could have done. When I was with my mom, when I tell you, I experienced like, I don't know if I could say this, but like, baby, it used to be, there was even a moment where like there was a deceased body in a abandoned house that we was staying in. We was on the news. It was like, it was just always a bad, like, just terrible. Like, baby, we had the worst case of wingworms. Like, not to
Mhm.
get too, but I mean, that's how bad it was. Like,
Mhm.
my upbringing and what I grew up in. And, having so many siblings, it always affected me, because I've always been this person that, again, like, I want to help people. I want to put us on. Like, y'all, we gonna make it out. We gonna make it out. And for years with my siblings, I would always try to help them, motivate them. Like, y'all, we're better than this, But again, like, some people, when people are saying like, you ain't gonna be nothing, you're gonna be just like your parents or whatever like that, you start believing it. But again, I always kind of had this tunnel vision, like, baby, I'm getting up out of here and I'm gonna do something with my life. So again, luckily once I got out of it, kind of navigated through life, did, made mistakes, made, whatever. Luckily for me, and I'm so grateful to God. And this is the thing about, because there was a moment where the person that I grew up with, or my parent, was a pastor. So that really kind of messed up my relationship with God. I hate to use it as an excuse, but it really took me away from it. So when I did finally leave her home, I kind of left God for a while, and
because of how you were treated
because of
and
how I was
how
treated. Because
okay.
I'm like, how can this woman be a woman of God and people are looking up to her? Like, she had a church, and
Mhm,
like people are looking up to her, like I was just like, baby, God ain't real. It can't be. And I
mhm.
funny. I tell my son this and my kids this all the time. Like I don't really push. I mean, obviously we pray and stuff, but I don't push that on them because eventually you're gonna come back to God regardless. And as I got out into the world again, being a woman, not having that maternal support, feminine energy support or whatever like that, I luckily, baby, I wasn't out here on the whole shit. I ain't saying that, but I got out here and I was just like, man. I had been put through so many situations. I remember getting into cars with men, and because again, I don't have no structure, I don't know no better. And God kept me. And in the moments, I didn't know that that was Him. I didn't know that my life could have been in danger or whatever. But again, that structure of not having that growing up and being taught how to navigate throughout this world or whatever, just being basically thrown to the wolves, taught me eventually, to put God in your life. And when I did that, and I stopped making excuses of, well, my mama was this or my daddy was this, and I didn't grow up with this. There is no excuse. What you gonna do with today? What you have breath in your body today. How can you move differently? How can you think differently? And I did that. And the moment that I put God back in my life, and it was for a very short period of time. Don't get me wrong, I'm talking about like 16 to 19, baby. I was out here living recklessly. I was. But I met my husband when I was 20, and we've been together ever since. And when I tell you, like, for years I've always thought, like, why I don't have this family full of love, or why I don't have all this support. And it was like, time and time again, God would remind me that this is all you need. This is all you need to have the life that you want to live, to be successful, to be, an inspiration for others, to be, what I'm saying, to be an example for others, be that person that you lacked or whatever. You can do that for yourself. And, kind of fast forward to where I'm at today. I know that was kind of long-winded. Sorry, Tori. That's kind of like how I
You
ended up where
good,
I
girl.
was. But, for a lot of people, and what I want to get across is just like, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter your upbringing. That does not matter. You know what I mean? If you can basically recognize it and identify that, hey, yeah, I may have grown up in the hood, I may have grown up in the project, my mama may not have been in my life or supportive or whatever. Still, what are you gonna do differently? And, and that's kind of always, I feel like, it's like my life motto or whatever like that. Like, you're not where you come from. You know what I'm saying? You can be whatever it is that you want to be, do whatever it is that you want to do. And I'm constantly reminded, every day I wake up, I'm big on like saying, things that I'm grateful for, because I could have went a different direction, regardless of me not having my mother, not having my parents in my life.
Absolutely. And I want to say that it's a blessing that you have that mindset, even at an early age, that
Mhm.
regardless of what you're saying to me, that I ain't going to be nobody, that I'm going to be somebody. And for you to not have your mom or someone who you felt like you had that motherly or that maternal connection to, that in itself is a blessing that you were able to stay in that mindset. Did you go into life with into relationships with abandonment issues, not having your mom and then not having that connection with your adoptive mom?
Honestly, for some reason, and it's so crazy, me and my husband, we talk about this all the time. I really kind of skipped over that again. Like, I'm so grateful that it happened for me. And I think one thing about being the youngest of 10 children at one time, like, my mother doesn't have biologically 10 children. I have biologically three other siblings, but I was in a household of 10 other, kids. So again, I don't know if it's a Leo thing, but luckily for me, and again, I thank God every single day. Like, I'm a
Mhm.
big believer in sitting back in the cut and watching people's mistakes,
Yeah.
and my sisters, and this is no shade or anything like that. They all kind of navigated relationships differently. How
Okay.
you have that one sister, she the bougie sister, where she like, baby, she getting all the Gucci purses and stuff like that. You like, hold up, I might want to take that route. And you have this sister, my one sister, she started having children at a very young age. And I kind of watched that. Then I had this other sister who got married at a very young, so I kind of really, got, I feel like, I don't know how you say it or how I can articulate this, but basically I kind of really just sat back and watched and was like, okay, I don't want to do that. I don't
You
want to do
got the
that.
bird's eye view of
Pretty
what to
much.
do and what not to do.
Pretty much. And I did
Mhm,
that. And, again, like I said, I was a very late bloomer. I had very low self-esteem. So
mhm.
I was never, at a point in my life, honestly, where I was kind of like, okay, I want to get a man, or I want to, like, I just was like, man, I got to get up out of here. And literally from a very young age on, like, again, when I used to get those sneak peeks of, when I would go to my best friend's house and to see how her mother treated her, and when we would have sleepovers, and like how she catered to all the young ladies that would come over and things like that, and how nice their house was and stuff like that. That's where my tunnel vision was, like literally from
Right.
a very, very young age. And that's what I was focused on. When I graduated, I had went to Purdue for 2 years, and my plan was honestly to go to the Air Force, but I needed to make some money. And so I had to start working a job at a warehouse job. And it was so crazy on that job. I went through so much because, again, not having that parental support or whatever like that, knowing how to navigate a job. This was like my first real job. I met
And
my
this was
husband
after you graduated high school?
after I graduated high school. I
Okay.
went to Purdue, and because my parents weren't supportive of, like, my education, you would have to attend like certain classes and stuff to keep like your grants, and or not grants, to keep your scholarships, basically, so you'll because being adopted, you do get like certain kind of incentives and stuff like that, that the state will handle for you, but you have to attend classes and stuff. My parents would not go to any of it, so
Mhm.
I end up losing like the funding, so I had to drop out. And I was like, at this point, I gotta get some money, so I end up,
Right.
getting a job, which was my very first job, like real job. And I met my husband on the job. And it was so crazy because I always tell people this story. When I met my husband, I have this thing where I'm like, I don't know if I say it'd be God's whisper, because I swear it's always like this low voice. When I met my husband, he ended up training me because I was working at a warehouse girl. And when I met him, I'll never forget. I had seen him and something whispered in my ear, and it was like, that's gonna be us. And I was like, what the hell? And it's so funny, our story of how we met. My husband is 20 years older than me. So when I
Mhm.
try to, when I met him, he was not on no, like, he was like, baby, you too young. I ain't, you know what I mean? Which is understanding, you know what I'm saying? But I was like,
Mhm.
oh, baby, challenge. I want you. Okay. I had ended up meeting him. And again, that mindset and that mind frame that I was in at that time, I was like, Sierra, get this money, stack up. And at the time, I was raising my nephew, one of my sister's kids at the time. And I was like, hey, we gonna move to Texas. We getting up out of Indiana. And we, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna start this life because I know I can have this, this life that I want. I know it's possible for.
Mhm.
I've seen too many people do it. So, girl, fast forward, I end up again working at this job, and I went through so much on this job, and it was so funny because it really was an eye-opening experience for me, because I went through like a whole sexual harassment experience on my job, and then which kind of brought me and my husband closer because he was the only man that had my back. I had men literally trying to come in the bathroom on me because, again, I don't know if you ever worked in the warehouse, but baby, it's a little rough.
I
And the
did.
men are like vultures, and especially if you like young meat. But again, ain't nobody ever talked to me about this, so I didn't know. And I
Mhm.
would be nice. I'm someone who is like, I don't know, like, I just enjoy being friendly to people. I didn't know that that meant that men might think that you trying to flirt with them or talk to them, but like, hey, if
Right.
you say, hey, how, good morning. I thought that that was what you was supposed to do when you walk into a room, but apparently men think that you
That's
want to
an
talk to them.
invitation
Right.
when it's not.
Married men at that, right? Girl, I had went through so much. I had men flashing they things at me in the warehouse, and
At work?
girl, we operating around food at that. But again,
Girl?
that's another story. Went through
Mm-mm.
so much. And then so
Mhm.
me and my husband, once we kind of started dating, we wanted to keep our relationship private because my husband had been on this job at the time for like 15 years already.
Mhm.
So he was known and he was respected. But when people found out that we started dating, like, everybody kind of turned on him. Everybody started like, and this, my husband used to be the life of the party. You know how people have get-togethers after work, and
Mhm.
like, that everybody hated him. And we just went through so much.
Wow.
I had people spitting in my food. I went through a lot. I went through a lot. But anyways, I'm on this job, and unfortunately that put a tag on my back because when I reported, because I thought if somebody calls you out of your name, if some man comes in the bathroom on you, some man
Mhm.
shows you I'm thinking you supposed, I mean, that's what I,
You are.
right, you know what I mean? But in that culture, you a snitch, you ain't supposed to do that. She's a problem or whatever like that. So I got this tag on my back. But again, at the time, this is all I knew. You know, it was somewhat decent money for what we was doing. I mean, yeah, we was working a lot of hours, but it was working. With my husband, I'm so grateful, and God rest his soul. His father. That was the first time I had ever experienced like damn, somebody like love me, like care about me and it's pouring into me. And I had never experienced that. And it, like I said, it was hard. It was definitely hard on our relationship, but it really brought us closer. And then, fast forward, I end up getting out of there. Luckily, after about 11 years, I was on that job for 11 years though, girl, 11
Mm,
years. I end up moving up, in the company or whatever like that. Luckily, because my work speaks for itself. But for a long time, it really did, help me. It held me back. And even when I was going through things, I even tried to reach out to my father. And I was like, because my husband's not from Indianapolis, my father is. So I'm like, he's kind of respected a little bit around the town. So I'm like, Dad, these men are messing with me or whatever like that. And he was not supportive at all. He didn't help.
mm,
He didn't do, so again, it just really felt me, I feel like that was your last opportunity to really kind of help.
right.
I ended up getting pregnant while I was there. I got pregnant with my son. Well, I had both of my children while I was at this job. When I was pregnant, people would try to run me over with a forklift. Girl, it was crazy. It was
Oh,
like, I need to write a book. I'm so serious. It was crazy. Like, I'm talking about we had to get police involved. It was a lot. I went through a whole EEOC case.
wow.
Child, it was a lot. But this was kind of like, again,
I was
my
getting ready to
my
say you should have done a lawsuit or something.
Oh, we definitely did. We definitely did.
Okay.
I
Okay.
went through, like I said, I went through a lot, but still, even with doing all of that, and even though it was the right thing to do, it
I know
brought
that's
this
hard
chat.
though.
I mean, because every time you walk in the room, everybody looking at her, that's the problem, child. Don't talk to her. She'll call EEOC on you for a valid reason, though, right? But yeah, kind of, after all of that, after I had both of my children, something really shifted in me and was like, it's time to do something different. I got to do something different with my life because this ain't it, and this is where, like, back in like 2000, like I would say, what is it, 15, 16, this is where like YouTube was kind of like really where like normal people could do YouTube and it was kind of blowing up. So I was like, I'm gonna start doing that. And I started really documenting my experience and just sharing my truth. And it would
Mhm.
be, relevant to so many women. And, and again, becoming a mom and stuff like that, I remember at that time, like, man, I don't really have anybody to look up to answer my questions about giving birth. I don't, I
Mhm.
mean, you got the internet, but I'm saying having that personal connection with somebody, I didn't have, like, I have my sisters, but you got to look, even though I'm the youngest, my sisters, I kind of have always treated them like you would think I was the oldest sister. Everybody knows that, like, about my family or whatever. So they weren't really helpful at that time. And then you got to think going through a pregnancy, being on this job, going through what I'm going, baby, the stress level was crazy. And it just really at that moment, and this was kind of like my last straw with my mom of just trying, to kind of make the relationship work. I was like, Mom, like I don't know what I'm doing, like, help me with this or whatever like that. And at the time, my mom was again kind of back and forth between the drugs and alcohol, in and out of like different what are they called, like recovery houses and stuff
Rehab.
like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was really rough, but in that time, like I said, and just trying to wrap it up, sorry, Tori. I just all I could do was put my faith in God and just be like, God, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm terrified to be a mom. I don't want to be a mom. You know what I'm saying? Hell, my husband, he was like, look, he 40 years old at the time. He was like, baby, I ain't want no kids. I didn't want any children. And it happened. And I was like in denial, literally up until the time my son came.
Mhm.
And when he did come up, I was like, okay, wow, I'm a mom. And it's so crazy how everybody's motherhood journey works. Like you think you need to be prepared or whatever, but it's like it's something that's within all of us, that maternal energy or whatever. And it's like when that baby come, baby, you gonna know what to do.
It
You know what
click
I mean?
in.
But when I tell you I was terrified, because again, I didn't have that support. I didn't have nobody telling me it's gonna be okay. I was like, girl, am I gonna boo-boo on myself when I get like, baby? I was worried about all the stuff that did not matter.
Yeah.
And just really worried about, was I gonna be a good mom? You know what I mean? Because
Right.
again, I didn't have representation, I didn't have a good example. And it's so, like I said, I can't say it enough. It's crazy that is like what my whole brand is. And people
I
be like, oh
want
my
them.
God, you're such an amazing mama. And I'm like, girl, are you sure?
So in that moment when you reached out to your mom to, as you say, like a final,
Yeah,
you know, chance to get something from her,
yeah.
at that moment, did you start to grieve the idea of the mother that you wanted her to be for you, or
For
that you thought
sure.
that she should be for you?
For sure. It immediately, like, that resentment was like, because again, like, I guess I didn't know what to call my feelings prior to all of the things growing up too. I just knew that, dang, why I can't be with my mom, or why don't I
Mhm.
have access to my mom like how everybody else does? Why I can't lay my head on my mama's lap and her talk to me and tell me things, again, to just simple things, you know what I mean? And so yeah, like it was kind of like, but again, at that moment, at that mind frame, even at being, I think at the time I was 23 when I had my son, I'm still kind of young minded. I didn't know at the time. I thought I was grown, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I was still, even being married, even being in a relationship from where I'm at now, kind of looking back, definitely, like, I was just very like, okay, at this point, I'm no longer going to reach out. I'm no longer going to even try anymore, because let's let go of the past. Okay, you wasn't there, you wasn't in my child, but now I'm having I'm having your grandchild. This is like,
Mhm.
to me, I feel like, um, this is your opportunity to
You're
kind of really
second
step up. Yeah,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's like, again, now that she's gone and stuff like that, and again, I don't know. I don't do drugs and alcohol heavy. Like, I mean, I do a little something here and there, but I'm just playing. No, I'm just playing. But no, but like, I'm not an addict or anything like that. So I can't, and giving her the benefit of the doubt. And this definitely has taken growth, prayer to get to this point. I was just like, you know what, I didn't make it this far without you. So I'm just gonna hey, I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna figure it out. And that's honestly what I say, what my motherhood journey has honestly been. Like, baby, I'm gonna pray and we're gonna just try to figure it out. None of us really know
Right.
what we're doing. I don't feel like there's an exact, blueprint that,
There's
hey,
no
this is what you need to do in order. Like, no, you just get out here and I don't want to say survive, but you kind of do.
basically.
So yeah.
So when your mom passed, what were the feelings behind that, being that you never got your, I'm not gonna say fairy tale, but you
Yeah.
never got what you were looking for in a mom from her?
I'm trying to think. Well, when my mom, okay, so this is the thing. My mom was in and out of the hospital a lot. I don't know if that just kind
Mm,
of comes with it or whatever like that. So, and again, my mom, because this is the thing, when you start using, this is one thing that I have studied and I have realized, when you
mhm,
start, utilizing drugs and alcohol, really mainly heavy drugs, you start to lose your mind, or they tend to say that, whatever age you were at, your mind stays at that age literally for the rest of your life. And it kind of made
mhm,
sense once I learned that, because I'm like, my mom was never really independent. She always had to be with someone to take care of her finances for her. Like, she never really, my mom didn't have a chance. You know what I'm saying? Again, at the time, I didn't know that. All I know is you're supposed to be my mom. You're supposed to handle responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? But when she passed, again, and this is why I'm so grateful that I had fixed my relationship with God. I had asked for closure. When my mom had passed at the time, I actually had let her come and stay with, my husband and I and my son, because I wanted to. Again, I'm not a person that I don't like to hold hate in my, because it's just too much. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So I wanted her to experience, her grandson and everything like that. It's funny. My mom, before she passed, was telling me that I was gonna have another baby. I said, "Girl, you crazy? I'm not about to have no other kids." Because my son, he's like 5. He's like 5 at the time when she passed. But she was staying with us for a while, in and out. And like I said, when you get used to somebody kind of doing the same things over and over, I wasn't really expecting her to pass at the time, because she was only 51. And
Mhm,
again, she would be at the hospital every other week, and like, she would get out. And so when she was in the hospital that last time, again, something kind of prepared me, and I just knew that it was gonna happen this time. Like, this is gonna be, to the point where I was not gonna go. And my husband was like, you need to go. You need to go to the hospital, because she was on a ventilator. Now, mind you, she'd been
mhm.
on the ventilator 18,000 times. So I'm like,
Okay.
she gonna bounce back. She always do. You know what I'm saying? To the
Yeah.
point where they knew her at the hospital by name, because that's how much she was there. And
Mhm.
so I didn't want to go. And my husband was like, you need to go. You really need to
Right.
go. So I went and I had a conversation with her. And
Okay.
the funny thing about it is, she was kind of very incoherent. You know what I'm saying? She was kind of in and out.
Okay.
And my mom, with me being the youngest, I don't know. I don't know if it's just a thing that she would just try to make me feel better. But she was just like, you've always been my favorite. And, you've always are the one that's trying to keep everybody together, continue to do it. But it was crazy, because in my whole, I think at the time I was maybe 27, 28. Um, my mom I've never had like a real conversation. Like, it's always been kind of like, I guess, surface level. I've never had a deep conversation with my mom. And in that moment when she passed, like I said, she was in and out. My mom used to love Whitney Houston. And I used to sing back in the day. So I'm like, I'm gonna play you some Whitney Houston. I really just wanted to, I didn't want to take that moment and be selfish about it, or like, basically go over all my grievances or my beef that I have with you. Because regardless if I'm thinking that you about to come up out of here, you're still in a vulnerable state. Like, I'm not about to be like, girl, F you, da 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 da, you did this or whatever. But something just told me, put on some Whitney Houston. So I put on some Whitney Houston. And again, my mom wasn't talking. Um, and it was crazy. She like woke up, and we had the most realest, like, I mean, when I tell you closure, and I'm sorry, I don't want to get emotional about it, but my mom,
You're
just to
fine.
hear her for the very first time ever say to me, like, I'm so proud of you. You're an amazing mom. Like, it was just like out of left field. And every time I think about it, it's funny because I have a picture of me holding her hand and stuff, but it like, I had never, like, you have to understand somebody that is like only calling you when they need something, when they want something, never really just saying, because again, like, it's so crazy. Anytime, still to this day, because I'm a crybaby, when people be like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," or whatever, I get emotional by it because I've never heard that, growing up. And I ain't gonna lie, it messed me up. It messed me up. And it like was like, wow, that's all, like, I feel complete. Like, I
It
mean,
healed you. It
it
was what you needed.
it was it Tori, when I tell you, like, it, because it wasn't what I was expecting. You get what I'm saying? Like, one, because again, I didn't know she was about to pass, but it was like, how something just is different for the very first time? Like, that's the best way I can explain. Because again, every time I've been around my mom, it was always like, what can I do for her? Or you know what I mean? It was never like she's done anything for me. I mean, you gave me life. I'm grateful for that. But for her to say that and just say, I'm just so proud of the young lady that you are. You have a husband. Like, like I said, it messed me up. And it was like, I was okay. And when she passed, like, in that moment, I was the only person there at the time. She just took her last couple of, like, but that was the last thing um that she said. And then, like I said, still to this day, it be messing me up. And I always go back to that moment. It's crazy how if you open your mouth and ask God for closure or whatever like that. And again, I wasn't really prepared. Like, when I was asking God for closure, I didn't think she was gonna die. I was just saying, like, God, like, I ain't gonna lie, this hurts my heart because at this time my relationship with my siblings, weren't it wasn't a solid relationship at that point because I've always been the person that's trying to keep everybody together, like, y'all, we gonna be better than this, but people are grown, they gonna do what they want to
Right.
do. Um and so again, I'm kind of going in there prepared to be the one to prepare things and talk about things. You know what I mean? I'm the strong one. And it broke me down. But it was like I needed that because I couldn't imagine. I've heard so many stories. I'm a lifetime baby girl. But where people don't get that closure and people don't get that, to hear that. And like I said, as small as that may have been, it was monumental for me in my motherhood journey. Just for me in general to have that, because now that she's gone, I don't have this emptiness or I don't have this incomplete. I don't know how you say it, but like, I don't have that. Like, my mom, and after learning and studying more into like drugs and alcohol and women that go through that, my mom did the best that she could absolutely do. And that is the whole point, you know what I mean, of being a mom. It's not being about, oh, I want to be able to take my daughter to brunch. Like, yeah, that's cute and having these moments, like, that's amazing. But ultimately, my mom could have kept us through the hell and all of that. Because I don't know how it works in
And
the
it
other
could have
states, but
been
I know
even
in
worse
Indiana,
for
baby,
y'all.
they try to keep you with the mom, regardless of how she's living, her circumstances and stuff like that. They will. That's just how they are. And the fact that she made that decision to give up her rights, that was her being the best mom that she could be. So I'm
Mhm.
forever grateful for that.
And it sounds like her saying to you that she's proud of you, that started the healing for little Sierra.
Yes, definitely. Because again, when my siblings will go off and stay with their fathers, or just my older siblings being adopted before I was, because I was the one that kind of stayed, because I was the youngest. So I was in and out. Like, maybe I didn't been through, I don't know how many foster homes and how many different schools, right?
Mhm.
And so again, as a child, especially like on my father's side, even on my father's side, my siblings on his side, I was like, damn, y'all got to live with him. Like, what's wrong with me? And again, that played into
Mhm.
my self-esteem, that played into I'm not good enough, how I felt about myself. And in general, like, I was a little tomboy growing up. So again, I didn't have that feminine, kind of energy
Mhm.
about me. And I just thought that there was something always wrong with me and I wasn't good enough, or you know what I mean? Like, I did. And I had never heard nobody say that. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I heard it from my father-in-law, which again, I'm so grateful for, but to hear it from the one that you came from, to never, ever, ever, ever have heard that. Um, and even if I'm sure maybe my mom had said it to me, but to feel it for once,
Mhm.
um, like I said, it was just life changing. It was really life changing for me. And I was like, wow, I ain't that bad. I'm not that messed up. Like, I am something to be proud of. Okay. Like, what? You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah, and then
it
for
definitely
her
healed me.
to it seemed like that was confirmation that, like, I see you. Like, even though, like, all of this has been messed up, I see you.
Mhm. To the
Like,
point where it's embarrassing to say, but I was confused when she said it. Because again, I'm not prepared that she's getting ready to die. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, girl, what did you,
Mhm.
where is this coming from? You know what I'm saying? Like that was my attitude even towards it. And I kind of feel bad for saying it, but I was like, where is this coming from, Mom? What are you talking about? She was like, no, I just want to let you know I'm just so proud of you. The mother that like I connect, like how she said it and the way that she worded it, she was just like, you just don't understand. Like, I wish I could be an inch of the mother that you are. And I'm like, what?
Mhm.
Like, girl, like where, you know what I mean? Like I just thought it was random, but I remember even the way that I felt when she said it, it was different. Like it was something that, and again, I don't know if that was God preparing me, like, hey, she's getting ready to pass, or it's just like this is genuine for once. Like I really feel it. And like I said, it definitely just helped me learn to just like let stuff go. There's a reason why, even as much as, and that's why I'm always telling people, regardless of your story or where you come from, it's about like you identifying like, okay, so what? What am I gonna do differently? You know what I mean?
Right.
Again,
How
like,
am I gonna move forward?
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so what? That's your excuse. And you know what I mean? You have opportunities and things to move differently in order to change that. You are not a product, you don't have to be a product of your environment, essentially.
Right.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because there's so many women that don't get the chance to get that closure. And even though this wasn't like going deep into things that happened or whatever,
Yeah.
that her saying that she was proud of you, that being healing for you and that being so monumental for you, that was the closure that you needed.
I didn't know
And
though.
yeah, yeah. And that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. So
And you can
I'm
only imagine, like, you know how you I guess kind of imagine a conversation in your head and what it would be like to
Mhm,
get what you want.
mhm.
I thought it was gonna be like take me back. Why did you do drugs and
Right,
alcohol? I thought it was gonna kind of be that. So again, it kind of caught me off guard. And yeah, like the fact that it was just this small little, I mean,
right.
literally like a 10-minute conversation where I'm like, baby, all these years you didn't admit, you know what I mean? It wasn't
Mhm.
that. So yeah,
I feel like it seems as though it was God telling you that it don't take all of that.
exactly.
And that
You
can
hit it
go
on
for
the yes.
situations in your life. It
Mhm.
don't even take all of that because really all of those things have already happened. And if there was a chance to move forward, that would be what would be most important, honestly.
Wow, I didn't think about it
Um,
like that. You're absolutely
yeah.
right. Mhm.
Yeah, because there's no way that people can change. You can get an apology, you can get, excuses, you can get, all of those things. But in the grand scheme of things, those things is not going to change what you went through. You
Right.
know, I didn't know your whole story. So
Yeah.
I just honestly thought that maybe you didn't get that because you didn't have the communication with your mom
Mhm.
anymore. So
Mhm.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that you got that healing that you
Yeah.
needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like in how you are as a mother, you reparented yourself to
For
heal
sure.
within?
For sure. Honestly, up until about, I would say probably because I've been a mom technically for 11 years now. So
Mhm.
honestly, I would say up until probably about a year ago, and still is I'm still a work in progress. That's why I told you I need some help. Tori, help me out. Uh, um, I am really I struggle with just being hard on myself as a mom because I have that void, because I have like I don't know. I don't even want to say it's an excuse as far as like, well, I don't know what a good mom is or whatever like that. Cause I feel like I'm out of that stage. That was definitely like, and I feel so sorry sometimes for my
I
son. Cause
was
I be
gonna
like,
say,
I'm
you
so,
know what a good mom is.
yeah, I mean, no, but I'm saying I just kind of like my
You
husband, cause he
second
said,
guess.
yeah, like my husband, he said this all the time to me. He's like, you beat yourself up so bad about like, you don't understand. Like cause I'm like, and it's not even about materialistic things or anything like that, but just being there and being present. Like I plan my day around my kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, because
Mhm.
I want them to feel, I know what it's like to grow up and just not have, um, that support. And then when I met my husband and I seen that his relationship that he had with his father, I'm like, they talk to each other every single day. Like, big decisions and like you getting ready to buy a home or something, like he's a part of the process. His
Mhm.
father gave us, our down payment on our like, baby, where I come from, you get out when you 18, you gotta figure it out and you grown. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, you're a parent for life. Like that don't stop no matter what
Mhm.
age you at or whatever like that. And again, that was my upbringing. So I definitely, I feel like have learned as I go throughout my parenting journey for sure. But I can't lie. I definitely, it's something that with a lot of prayer, and support and everything like that. I kind of get brought back to reality. Like, it's not that serious, Sierra. It's
Right.
not that deep. You are doing amazing. And I have to that's why I'm so huge on like affirmations and things like that. Cause that really does help me personally. Instead of just like, I mean, you can tell me all day, oh, you're an amazing mom, but I have to feel that way about me. You know what I mean? So
Right.
definitely, for sure.
Because even in the grand scheme of things, if you look at what you went through as a child versus how your children are growing up,
Yeah.
and the opportunities that they have, and the love that you show them and give them, like even that, like I don't know everything, but from what I see and it's total day and night, so
for
that
sure.
right there should let you know that you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you for the reminder, George. She said day and night. No, it is.
Look at that. Like, dang, did I have unlimited food in the pantry? Did I have, did I go on trips and vacations and, that type of thing? So that should definitely let you know and be a reminder for you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, girl. Because you killing the game, girl. And like you said, like you do it for your kids,
Yeah.
Yeah, your kids have a legacy.
Yeah. It's insane to say that. Thank you, Tori. That helped.
Your kids have
I was like, it's ghetto over here. And I have to catch myself sometimes because like I need very like, maybe I be like, how am I somebody's parent? Like, child, I am a child myself. Okay.
Girl, I be feeling the same way sometimes. Like, I ain't qualified for this.
Girl, what am I gonna do?
44.
That's why I'm like, Tori, you look amazing because you don't look like it.
You.
With a 20, what's your oldest child?
28.
That's insane. Insane.
And a 22-year-old getting ready to be 23.
Like, how do you navigate your kids? Like, and it's just like, do you parent when they grown? You parent when they grow, right?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
You don't never stop parenting, especially if you the way that you parent your children now, you're gonna parent them children. If you have a close relationship with them, even if you don't, you're gonna have a close relationship with them, and you're gonna parent them until the end. Because my children are very independent, but they are dependent. Like my daughter, she will call me if she has a doctor's appointment.
I love that. I love that.
With her, with the doctor in the room, and I'm on FaceTime, and she asks,
"What am I doing?"
Yeah, so it's like, even though they become adults, they still they still need you.
Okay.
They still need that support. They want your support. Like, when my daughter was a teenager, she didn't necessarily, she withdrew a lot, and she didn't, like, how teens go through and they just be like, don't want nothing to do with their parents and stuff like that. When she became an adult, it's like she drew closer to me.
Okay.
And, we figured it out. We figured things out. And it's just like, they want that. They need it. And even if they don't know they need it, they need it.
Yeah.
For you to
That's
be there. For you to, when they move into their place and they don't necessarily know certain things about how it should go. And like, so it's, they need you. Like my 27-year-old still be.
I love that.
He will come and get in the bed with me.
Please.
Still.
Because that's what I want. That's what I want for it. Well, and I think what it is I struggle. So this is the thing. Growing up, I think having my husband, because I always tell my husband, I know, and again, this is that mindset, messing up your mindset. I'm like, you grew up spoiled. You grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth. And it's like, no, he grew up in a loving home. His parents did what they were supposed to do. And it's like, I'm so grateful that my husband didn't try to leave my ass, because we would like not necessarily bump heads, because we really just have a really good relationship. But like, for example, growing up how I grew up, I think it's relevant to share that with my kids. So, for example, we volunteer like homeless shelters and stuff like that, because I'm like, to me, that's important because I went through this. You know what I mean? If you don't handle your stuff and whatever like that, maybe you can do this. Maybe I can put them on a city bus. And my husband, he kind of frowns upon that. Well, at least in the beginning he did, because he was like, my kids ain't gonna never have to go through that. But I'm like, it's still important to know. And so I think sometimes in my parenting journey, I do struggle with the fact of like, yes, I want to give you the world, the rainbows, the unicorns, and everything. But at the same time, I want you to know that you do have to work up for things. Like, for example, me and my husband, we always, yeah, like we always have the thing, like, for example, I wouldn't give my child a brand new BMW for their 16th birthday. No, you're going to work up your way to get to that point. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm going to give you the most beat up hoopty, but at the same time, I think I'm grateful sometimes for my upbringing and the things that I had to go through because it teaches me, you know, or I feel like I've learned to, yeah. So it's just sometimes I feel like that's really kind of my struggles that I go with of like, okay, is this a tough love moment or it's just kind of like, why put your kid, you know how, what's that saying where they say like, instead of making my kids get it out of the mud, I'm letting them get it from the garden that I've grown. And it's just, I don't know, I just feel like I really struggle with that of like, okay, this is tough love, but my kids are still very young. But like, I'm like, at my age, I was independent at like 6. You know what I'm saying? I be looking at my son sometimes and I'm like, boy, if you don't man up, you know what I mean? So I struggle with that, you know.
And that's normal. Have you ever felt yourself holding back with them because of how you grew up so that they would learn or
in ways? But then I'm like, is that my trauma? Is that my trauma or is that relevant? Do you get what I'm saying? Because like, for example, and this is no disrespect to my husband, but like my husband could call his father, you know, God rest his soul now, but could call his father if he needed to. I'm not saying that he ever did, but like he could call him like, hey, I need 50,000 tomorrow. And his daddy would give it to him. Where I feel like as a man, as a adult, if you're in a situation like that, and again, I'm not saying my husband ever done that, but that's the type of relationship that they had, you know, and I'm grateful for it. Like I said, he gave us the down payment on our house. I'm not complaining. But I still feel like there has to be some kind of like, you need to figure out on your own, because if your mom and your dad, I mean, granted, we're setting things up for you, so you will always be okay, but still, like, if something was to happen, can you survive on your own? So I guess I feel like you instill that at a young age, you know, it's not like you wait until they're 17, 18 to start talking about stuff like that.
Right. So what you would want to focus on is the education piece. So not necessarily like holding back and giving them the, you know, the nice things or whatever, but educating them on, you know, it's not this easy to where, you know, we had to work up to this and that type of thing, and just giving them life skills at an early age, and just so that they know, not saying that you're going to put them outside or, you know, and make them do, you know, whatever, but just the education piece of things so that they can have good decision-making skills and be a productive adult. In which I definitely agree with, because the way that I grew up in the era that I grew up in, my parents and a lot of parents that at that time did not teach nothing. Like they were very close-lipped about a lot of things. Did not teach about credit, did not teach about sex, didn't teach about a lot of different things, and just left it like that. We were just trying to figure stuff out, you know what I'm saying? So I agree with the education piece of whatever you want your kids to know, whether it's Black history, whether it's finance, you know, stuff like that, whether it's you know, how to balance a checkbook or how to, you know, whatever. I feel like it's very important to do that at an early age.
And even like daily habits, being a young lady, how you clean, you know what I mean? Hygiene, as a man, you know, because building those habits now, like I'm like, you gonna get up and make your bed every day. Because if you don't do it and then you try like, I don't want my husband, I mean my son to be dirty, you know what I'm saying? Or you know, a young lady be like, oh, your house is trifling, you know. So that's why I'm like, but then at the same time, I just be having these moments where I'm like, am I doing too much? He's just a kid, you know what I'm saying? Because again, I wouldn't have a problem coming over my grown son's house and doing his laundry, but at the same time, you gonna need, you know, so again, it's just that balance. And I feel like there is no middle ground with me. And I think that's my struggle. So I'm like, either we gonna talk from the mindset of being poor, or we gonna talk from the mindset of being up here. And I'm just like, that is, I feel like one thing that I'm just really, really working on, like just trying to be like, it's okay to show both sides of it, and then kind of meet in that middle ground of that compromise or whatever, you know what I mean? But I think definitely instilling, if you don't do nothing in your parenting journey, putting certain habits and I'm talking about like really like Zyla, she about to get her life together in a minute, because me and her, we be bumping. But like I'm like, really, I say like about 5, them habits I feel like should start, you know. I remember when I was 5. I don't know if it's because of the trauma, but I remember, you know.
I think that now that you realize where you kind of struggle with, I'm either hot or I'm either cold, and we
Yeah.
don't either be this or is either that. I think that now that you really recognize it, that you will probably put forth more of an effort to have that balance, so to where it's not so drastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
one of the things that you're doing to try to educate your kids on, you know, life.
Yeah.
Because
Can
a
I
lot of kids don't know about other kids that don't have food, or kids that, you know, might be in the dark because their parents can't afford to pay the light bill, or they don't know unless we tell them.
exactly. And I don't
Yeah.
want you to grow up in a world where it's just like, because like I had started noticing like certain behaviors in my son where like he expects certain things, which I'm like is a good thing, but it
Right.
also could be a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like something as simple as you 11 years old and you expect me to cook you a home cooked meal. I mean, I know this is petty, but I'm just saying you expect me to cook you a home cooked meal every single day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Like he was expecting that. And I said, boy, if you don't go in here and figure this out, like when, you know, granted, he does do homeschooling and everything like that. But even when I'm like, I want him to go to high school so he can get that experience. But, you know, you have to learn how to be independent upon yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, mama will do anything for you, baby. You my baby. But I'm also raising a young Black man. And,
Right.
you know, like right now, you know, my husband and I, as he kind of, because we let him like, you know, drive his little scooter or something like that out in the neighborhood. But I'm like, you may get stopped. And, you know, it's just, again, just kind of just figuring out like, do I have this conversation with my child now? Or I don't want to wait and it's too late. Because as a young Black man, you get perceived as a damn adult at fucking 12.
Right.
So those are those things where it just gets a little, you know, a little challenging or whatever. But again, nobody has all the answers. Nobody has it all figured out. And you just kind of go with the flow. And then, like, you know, the sex thing. I'm not going to be that parent. I ain't there yet, Tori. I ain't there yet. I don't know. I don't know.
Listen, the earlier the better, because I'm telling you, like, in my experience, I was 15 when I got pregnant, 16 when I had them, didn't know nothing about sex. When my children were 10 and 5, we was talking about sex. And I mean, we was going all the way in with the details.